Hi there, Cultivated Life community. How are you doing? I have been thinking about you guys frequently. I haven't been doing as many blog posts lately. I'm a little behind. I'm trying to get to an every other week schedule because I'm doing a lot of content for Rise Up Writers as well, which is another audience that I serve. But I was thinking about you today as I was reading a chapter from the book Think Differently, Live Differently by Bob Hamp. It is the first book that he wrote. There is 3 of them. There's Think Differently, Live Differently, Lead Differently, and Learn Differently. All of them are very, very powerful, and there's a parable that gets interwoven through his different books, and it starts off in Think Differently, Live Differently. You can find this parable by looking up A Kingdom Parable by Bob Hamp. You'll find it on Vimeo. Anyway, the parable is about an acrobat who lost his family. They were well-trained acrobats, like the best in the world, and he was lost as a child, and he grew up with a farmer's family instead. And in the chapter that I was reading today, he has been placed back with his original family, and he is recognizing that the voice that he grew up with, the father that he grew up with, was not revealing his identity, who he really was, and he was having a hard time getting unenmeshed from the words that he's heard that basically made him feel like he always had to perform, that he had to do a better job all the time, and that he just wasn't doing good enough. And so he was getting used to his father's voice, his biological father's voice, who was just so happy to be with him and to have him in his presence. And part of the acrobat's journey is understanding his identity and living in the freedom of who he really is. So I got to thinking of all of us on our cultivated life journey because there is a saying that's out there that we might hear a lot and that we might want to gravitate to very easily. Memes will share something like this that when you really think about what they're saying, it can actually hinder us from doing some of the things that will help us experience more of God's peace, joy, and freedom. And one of the sayings is, be you. Just be you. And there is something that's true in that, and something that's also very misleading in that. And Bob kind of brought this out in his book about some of the something else. It was another quote. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it had to do with that concept of just be you. The problem is that we don't know who we are meant to be. If we're only looking inside of ourselves or into ourselves to be who we are, we have flawed filters that we're going to have unhealthy beliefs that get tied to that. We're going to have destructive ways of living that we might think are good, but that's based on our own perceptions, absent of God and absence of God's truth and his voice in our lives. So I want to encourage you to not just be who you are, but to really consider becoming who you're meant to be. There's a difference in that perspective. Even if you're thinking of that saying, kind of the motivation behind the saying, not just being me, because that can lead to a lot of pride and misplaced statements to saying, well, that's just me being me. That would actually be harmful to yourself and to your relationships with other people. Whereas when we are becoming who God has created us to be, we're changing, we're growing, and we are embracing the unique qualities that God has given us, the unique attributes that we carry as a reflection of God. All of mankind is created in the image of God. But think about this. God is so big, so vast. No one person can contain all the attributes of God. No one can even reflect one of his attributes in fullness or wholeness or perfection in any way. But we still have that reflection of him that we want God to show us. We want him to reveal himself to us and then allow his work in us to change us so that he is reflected in our lives to other people. And we cannot do that if we're only focused on ourselves and our own wisdom and knowledge. But what we need to do is embrace the process. So there's a couple of things I want to focus on. One is explore. Have you given yourself a chance to explore your gifts? The desires and passions of your heart, do they line up with the heart of God? Are they harmful or hurtful to other people, or are they helpful in some way? Maybe it seems like what you're exploring, what's coming to the surface that is a strong gift or desire, as you start to explore that, maybe you realize, oh, that's actually just something that I thought I might like to do because I saw someone else do it, but you explored it and you found out that wasn't it. Okay, well, now you get to fine tune to explore further. What are the unique desires and gifts that are wired inside of you that can uniquely reflect God to other people in ways you can't even imagine yet? What is that? We won't know unless we explore. Explore with God through prayer, through journaling, use the Unleashed Heart and Soul care sheets, and talk with friends. Ask your friends, what is it that you see in me? If you have some trusted people in your life, ask them, what do you see in me that is a strength, or a way that I interact with people, or creativity that I have? Ask some questions that help give you a little bit of insight to maybe what other people see that you don't even know is there, if you're really struggling with that concept. Explore who you are in God's eyes, and explore whom you are becoming because of who He designed you to be. Another thing is to dig in. So when we start to notice that, let's say you start to realize, man, I really love putting together mosaic puzzles. I really love when people gather at my home, or when I get to meet someone at a coffee shop, or when I get to host an event. What is it that's starting to kind of come to the surface, okay? But then you face some challenges, and maybe you recognize that there's some areas of fulfilling that that aren't as easy for you, or something is coming up that's fear. Dig into the work. Dig into it's kind of more like a further exploration to dig into where God is taking you and to the process that He has for you along the way. Because when gifts and desires start to surface, it's not always clear what we should do with them. And quite frankly, the fruit of doing our gifts and desires, how that looks to other people, often comes out as we dig in. That might look like facing some hard circumstances. And wow, when we have a conversation with somebody, I recognize that I just want to put on a facade. I want to go really shallow in my responses, but what's actually connecting with someone is something that's a little bit deeper. That's something I'm noticing about myself. So I'm not sure if that's the best example or not, but just dig into the work that God's calling you to do, not just the gifts that He has for you to give to other people, but the work that He has for you in your heart. Because what's going to happen is when you start to feel that tension, you're going to want to shove it aside. That's our tendency. All of us will want to shove it aside. We'll want to ignore it. We'll want to go to the feel-good things quickly. But when we dig in, we can... when we dig in, what are you going to find? Possibly hidden treasure that you didn't even know that was there until you did the work with God. And this could be also uprooting your unhealthy beliefs and wounds, letting God heal those. But when that discomfort rises, dig into the process. God will not leave you alone in the process. He will guide you step by step. He has a plan for you. He has a plan for you that's healing, that brings healing and brings growth. Okay, the last thing is to allow that painful change. So really this kind of concept just builds on the digging in. When you feel that tension, you might feel the anxiety. Allow that space. Allow that discomfort long enough for you to feel the feelings that you need to feel, to let the healing come. The healing comes through the breakthrough. There's a saying, I don't know if I can think of it right now, but it's always darkest before the dawn, or like the storms pour before the sun breaks through, and then you have the rainbow and everything. I'm probably not thinking of the best example there, but I think you get what I'm saying. When you start to feel that, don't only dig in, but allow the space for God to work in those unpleasant places. When we do, we get to see the fruit of things that I can't even explain to you. When I think about my own healing and freedom journey, I cannot explain to you something that's going to tell you specific steps of here's how it is going to work for you. but you are going to take your own journey to cultivate a life well lived with God. The Holy Spirit is with you. And if you're not sure, ask a friend to pray with you. I will pray for you. Just send me an email. I'll be standing with you in prayer because I know that God is with you and that He desires for you to experience more of Him as you pursue this journey. I love y'all. I am so excited for every person who has the courage to stand up and say, I want to experience more of God in pursuing this journey of cultivating a life well lived. Take care.